Gen Z. We talk about them in so many different ways. How do you see Gen Z?
You find a mass of fears, insecurities, restiveness, desires, hopes, hurts. That's there. It's also the same for Gen Z.
But we stereotype Gen Zs a lot, that they live in a distracted world. Their minds are maybe more restless as compared to the previous generations.
Degree of expression has changed. Maybe we had an equal measure of restlessness, but we were culturally trained to not. We are restless by design and birth. The mass that emerges from the womb is restless since its first moment. I'm not all right with myself. What's wrong with me?
Gen Z, the generation is called employer's nightmare. It's very difficult for the millennial employers and the Gen Z employees to go hand in hand or to have a perfect harmony.
They are not really rebellious. They too are.
In today's world of social media, constant stimulation, information overload, doom scrolling, why should Gen Z even care about Vedant and Gita, the ancient wisdom? Hi, I'm Divyanshi Sumrav and welcome to NDTV's special program where we are going to discuss this important issue, the hot issue, with Acharya Prashant, an IIT IIM alumnus. Welcome to the show, Acharya Prashant. And you have decoded the timeless wisdom and imparted it to the most restless minds. It may have cured their anxiety. It might have showed them the right path through your teachings. I would like to talk about Gen Z. We talk about them in so many different ways. How do you see Gen Z?
You see, you used two words in the way you introduced. You said ancient wisdom and you said timeless. So these are the two ways of looking at anybody. There is something about us which is dependent on time. That you can call as ancient or modern. So in that sense, Gen Z belongs to today. It's very modern. It belongs to the present. It is the most present of all generations. And then there is something timeless about the human being that doesn't change with time. And that remains the same. And that too is at two levels. That which doesn't change. One, our primitive restlessness, and second, our potential, our eternal potential to gain freedom from that restlessness. Understand? There is something about us, the very outer sheath, that depends on time, place, situations, gender, this, that, culture, habits, everything. That keeps changing. Unfortunately, most of us don't penetrate beneath that level. So we take that level as the truth of the individual. But the fact is, there is so much more present beneath that. Beneath that, what do you firstly find? You find a mass of fears, insecurities, restiveness, desires, hopes, hurts. That's there. And then right at the center is the ultimate truth, the truth beyond all layers and sheaths. That's timeless, absolutely timeless. So that's the same for the person that existed 50,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago. That's also the same for Gen Z. That would also be the same for Gen whatever that comes next.
Gen Alpha and so on. But we stereotype Gen Zs a lot. That they live in a distracted world. Their minds are maybe more restless as compared to the previous generations. And we both belong to different generations. If we talk about Gen Z, we are not the same generation as they are. And the thing you just said, the restlessness is primitive. It's the same.
Yeah.
Maybe the form has changed.
Form has changed.
Maybe the environment has changed.
And the degree of expression has changed.
Yeah.
Maybe Gen Z, then yours that came before it, and then mine that came before maybe we had an equal measure of restlessness, but we were culturally trained to not to be expressive about it, to deal with it in a different way, to suppress it, very simply.
Yeah.
Maybe that was the case. Because that restlessness is nothing new. That's not something of the 21st century. That exists in the species itself. That's the way we are physically designed. We are restless by design and birth. The mass that emerges from the womb is restless since its first moment, its first cry. We are restless. We are restless. And that brings us to the eternal relevance of good philosophy. It addresses that restlessness. That's the entire purpose of philosophy. That's the beginning point, the very source of all good philosophy.
That restlessness.
Yep. I'm not all right with myself. What's wrong with me? That's true about all Indic philosophy. And that's also true about good Western philosophy. It looks at oneself, it emanates from there. And philosophy that doesn't look at itself is second rate. So for example, Vedanta would say the human being suffers from three kinds of ailments. Inner stirrings, restlessness, disquiet. And they are named. They say Adhidevik, Adhibhautik, Adhyatmik. There are three kinds of inner turbulences. And so you would have heard the Shanti part that precedes the texts of all Upanishads, and at its end it says Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So the three Shanti correspond to the three kinds of restlessness that ail each one of us. Similarly, when you look at the Buddha, his first noble truth is Dukh. Dukh. So the entire philosophy begins with that acknowledgement. It is because we human beings are in a state of misery and suffering that I, Gautam Buddha, would now proceed to say something. Otherwise, one is not obsessed with speaking or writing or lecturing or gaining a crowd or followership. No one wants that. That's the thing about having the philosopher as the sage or the saint. He explores the truth with the objective of ridding humankind from suffering. That's it. Now that suffering is primitive. It keeps taking just different contemporary forms, right? Beneath all the forms, the germ is primitive. The seed, the source is eternal. And therefore, whatever has been said, not whatever really, but the highest that has been said to address the very root of suffering will hold relevance till eternity. And that's the reason Gen Z will need to go to it. However, each age has its own idiosyncrasies, its own fantasies and whims. No? So yes, the eternal understanding probably needs to be brought to this generation in its own preferred form and lingo, in its own preferred vocabulary. That is what needs to be done. So you need to contemporize and contextualize the eternal understanding and bring it to this generation and the next generation and the next generation, provided there are many generations still left given the specter of climate change.
We will talk about it. But as you said, it's the primitive seed and it's there. But when someone is on the lookout, someone is seeking an answer, I really can't speak for Gen Z because I'm not a Gen Z. I do not belong to that generation. But I can talk about millennials. I can, and you use this particular term, expression. We have suppressed ourselves so much that we did not see it as a problem. It's okay. We are doing it. Maybe this is how it's ought to be done. But when it comes to Gen Z, what I have observed, they are more expressive. They talk about it. They challenge the authority. For example, Gen Z, the generation is called employer's nightmare because they won't ask for a holiday. If that's there in their in the structure, they would simply email their employer and say, oh, we are not coming tomorrow, and simply. So it's very difficult for the millennial employers and the Gen Z employees to go hand in hand or to have a perfect harmony. But that's not the case with our generation, what I have observed. This is my opinion. That's why when they pose a challenge, maybe a threat, become a rebel, it starts birthing different problems which might not be, good for the culture we have been living in. So what do you have to say about it?
They are not really rebellious. They too are following the norms of their times and their community. It is the norm in their community to act as if you do not accept authority. You see, real rebellion is not possible without self-knowledge. You cannot be a real challenger if you are not wise. We were conditioned to treat authority in one particular way, and we did that. Maybe that appeared like submission. And this generation is conditioned to respond to authority in another way, and it does that. And that is not freedom. Because if we were being submissive because of conditioning, these people appear rebellious. Mind you, they appear rebellious. They are not rebellious. They appear rebellious because of their particular conditioning. And rebellion, that is a result of conditioning, is not freedom at all, or is it? It is not. So they are following the code of their community. They are following the norm of their times. It's not that they are particularly rebellious, and I can say that because millennials, Z, Alpha, newborns, I deal with everybody. They all are present, and I look at them. You see, we all are born in a condition of inner slavery, right? Unless that is challenged with realization and wisdom, the maximum that you can get is a decorated kind of slavery. The maximum that you can get is an expressive kind of slavery.
A golden cage.
A golden cage, or a particular fence within which you are free to do your own thing. Do your own thing, but these are the limits. Or say that you are free, even as you are a blind servant to your bodily impulses. Proclaim that you are free and you love freedom, even as you do not even know that you are just succumbing to peer pressure and following the prevalent trends, and that is not freedom at all. So there is no fundamental difference between the conditions of the different generations. The commonality is all are internally unfree. Externally, there are different, various expressions of the lack of freedom. Some expressions of lack of freedom appear like freedom. But just because lack of freedom can deceptively take the form of freedom, that doesn't make it free.